Did you know that the Russian Revolution was actually two revolutions? It creatively disrupted the social norms of the time and created a completely new society. However, this change did not happen overnight, and ordinary Russians struggled for years to feel the revolution's impact. Now let's get down to the brass tacks and discuss how this historical shift impacted ordinary Russian lives. Russia is a tale of two cities, simultaneously beautiful yet persistently chaotic and troubled. It's like a thrilling book where, just as you think you've figured out the plot, it throws an unexpected twist your way. In the century leading up to 1917, its story was filled with unpredictable disturbances and political turmoil, occasionally mellowed by phases of uneasy tranquility. All the while, it became a bedrock for some of the world's most notable literature, saw its population explode, and played the role of Europe's breadbasket. And then Russia did something extraordinary. It plunged headfirst into an upheaval, so dramatic and unprecedented that the world had never witnessed anything quite like it. Fast forward to the present day a century later, and we're still scratching our heads, trying to fully comprehend that monumental event. Even the Russians, whose lives have been shaped by it, can't unanimously agree on its true importance. The events that unfolded in the spring of 1917 were nothing short of a game-changer for ordinary Russians. They had been subjected to absolute monarchy for centuries, with the Tsar and his nobility controlling every aspect of their lives. But as the revolution gained momentum and the Bolsheviks rose to power, these oppressed citizens found themselves at the forefront of a new social order. So let's take a journey back to 1917. This was a time when a major political event shook the world, the Russian Revolution. It was a big, loud, and chaotic event that caused a stir throughout the 20th century. A powerful family, the Romanovs, had ruled Russia for many years, but then their reign suddenly stopped because of this revolution. Russia, under their rule, had been an empire for centuries, but it was time for a change. The reasons were quite a few. The people in Russia were not happy. They were not earning enough money. There was not enough food for everyone, and on top of all that, the government was full of corrupt people. The Tsar at the time, Nicholas II, was particularly unpopular. Then something happened. A group of people known as the Bolsheviks came into the picture. They were led by a man named Vladimir Lenin. Lenin was a revolutionary who believed in making big changes. Together, the Bolsheviks took charge and put an end to the old ways of ruling by czars. Thus, the Bolsheviks completely crushed the centuries-old tradition of czarist rule. And guess what? They later formed what we now know as the Communist Party in the Soviet Union. So, you see, it was a turning point that changed the course of Russian history forever. You must be thinking, what sparked the Russian Revolution? Russia didn't jump onto the Industrial Revolution bandwagon as quickly as Western Europe and the United States did. However, when it ultimately did, which was around the moment the 20th century was dawning, it ushered in a wave of extraordinary social and political transformations. In the period of 1890 to 1910, the number of people living in big Russian cities such as St. Petersburg and Moscow almost doubled. Can you imagine the cramped and dreadful living conditions this surge in population brought for the newly formed class of Russian industrial workers? The situation was made worse by the combination of a population surge towards the end of the 19th century, harsh growing conditions due to Russia's chilly climate, and a string of expensive wars. This created a frequent shortage of food across the vast Russian Empire. To get a real sense of the situation, consider this. A famine that struck between 1891 and 1892 is believed to have claimed the lives of up to 400,000 Russians. And then came the Russo-Japanese War, which took place between 1904 and 1905. This had a crushing effect on Russia and its ruler, Tsar Nicholas II. The war, which Russia ultimately didn't win, saw the country bear huge losses in terms of soldiers, ships, money, and international reputation. As all of this unfolded, many Russians were able to understand the situation. While viewing the social progress and scientific developments in Western Europe and North America, these were the educated ones who realized their country's growth was being slowed down by the monarchical rule of the czars and those in the aristocratic class who backed them. There was a time when Russian workers had to protest against the monarchy, leading to a tragic incident known as the Bloody Sunday Massacre in 1905. The Tsar's troops ended up injuring or even killing hundreds of protesters who weren't armed. This massacre triggered the 1905 Russian Revolution. The workers, now angry, sparked a wave of powerful strikes all over the country. Farmers and soldiers joined to support these strikes, giving rise to worker-led groups known as Soviets. In an interesting turn of events, the crew members of a battleship called Potemkin boldly rebelled against their high-ranking officers. Historians would later call this revolution the Great Dress Rehearsal, hinting at bigger changes that were about to hit. After the chaos of 1905, Nicholas II, who was also deeply affected by Russia's failure in the Russo-Japanese War, advocated for more freedom of speech. He even talked about creating an assembly named Duma to improve things. When World War I began in August 1914, Russia sided with the Serbs, French, and British. However, joining this war was a major setback for the Russian Empire. They were not prepared to fight against Germany, which was well ahead in terms of military technology. The loss of lives was massive and like nothing seen before. Soon, Russia faced a severe shortage of food and fuel. With prices rising steadily, the already weak economy greatly suffered because of the expensive war. In 1915, Tsar Nicholas had to leave the Russian capital, Petrograd, to lead the Russian army. This city was renamed in 1914 mainly because its earlier name sounded too German. As a result of these disastrous events and the growing dissatisfaction among the people, conditions were ripe for a revolution and change in leadership. The Bolsheviks seized this opportunity and led their successful revolution in October 1917, paving the way for one of history's most influential political ideologies, Soviet communism. And just like in any other tale, different people have different takes on it, especially the big political groups in Russia. They cleverly used the 100-year anniversary of this revolution to appeal to people and get their votes. Take Gennady Zyuganov, the big boss of the Russian communists, for example. He thinks the Bolshevik Revolution was the bee's knees. To him, it's all about the brilliant modernization under Lenin and Stalin and the magnificent changes during the Brezhnev era. But he isn't a fan of Putin, Gorbachev, and Yeltsin. He says they're the reason for 25 years of never-ending troubles. On the flip side, the guys who like the West, the liberals, see things differently. Their top man, Grigory Yavlinsky, believes every government in Russia since that fateful November of 1917, even today's government, hasn't been legit. He argues that they've been running the show based on scare tactics and fibs. So, everyone has their own twist on the same story. The aftermath of the Russian Revolution had a long-lasting impact on the country and its people. The establishment of Soviet communism brought about significant changes in Russia's economy, politics, and society. It also played a major role in shaping global politics during the 20th century. Under Soviet rule, Russia experienced rapid industrialization and modernization, leading to educational, scientific, and technological advancements. However, this progress came with great costs: mass purges, forced labor camps, censorship, suppression of individual rights and freedoms, and a loss of cultural heritage. The ordinary people of Russia, who were once oppressed and living in poverty under the rule of the Tsars, now had opportunities for education, employment, and social mobility. Women gained equal rights and access to education and jobs. The revolution also brought about changes in art, literature, and culture. The Soviet government promoted socialist realism, a style that glorified communism's achievements, which became the dominant form of artistic expression in Russia. So what do you think about the Russian Revolution and its aftermath? Was it a necessary step towards progress, or did it bring more harm than good? Let us know in the comments below, and like and subscribe to the channel for more information on history.